Those were Malcolm Jamal Warner's words, shared just days before his death. It wasn't a song lyric. It was a warning, a reflection, a cry from someone who had seen too much and could stay quiet no longer. On screen, Warner always brought calm and joy. As Theo Huxtable on The Cosby Show, he was the voice of a generation. The funny, lovable son whose growing pains mirrored our own. But in his final days, the man behind the smile was wrestling with something much deeper. And now, he's gone. Warner died at age 54 during a family trip to Costa Rica. The initial reports were tragic, but straightforward. Accidental drowning, swept away by a dangerous rip current at Playa Grande. But as new details emerge, that simple story starts to unravel, and in its place, troubling questions rise. There were no lifeguards on duty that Sunday, no flotation devices, no dedicated safety crew, just a picture-perfect beach hiding a brutal reputation. When Warner was pulled from the water, CPR was performed, a defibrillator used, and a doctor on vacation tried to save him. But it was too late. A second swimmer nearly drowned the same day. That's not a freak accident. That's a system failure. Yes, people tried to help, but they were untrained and unequipped. As volunteer lifeguard Sofia Cordoba put it, we were risking our own lives. This wasn't just tragic, it was preventable. But the circumstances surrounding Warner's death are only part of the story. The other part is the message he left behind. Urgent, emotional, inconvenient. In the final episode of his podcast, Not All Hood, released just 2 days before his death, Warner opened up in ways he rarely had. It wasn't light-hearted banter. It was raw, reflective, and deeply personal. He spoke with spoken word artist Georgia Mee, Tamina Harper, who challenged him on the podcast's name. When he told her it was called Not All Hood, she responded bluntly, "Ain't nothing wrong with the hood." That line stopped Warner in his tracks. It forced him to confront how even well-meaning efforts to redefine black narratives sometimes play into media stereotypes, stigmatizing, sanitizing, or distancing from the richness of black identity. Warner wasn't rejecting the hood. He was challenging the systems that distort and exploit it. In that episode, he laid it bare. The hood side, historically, is what has always created American culture. This wasn't just commentary. It was critique. He was naming the theft of black creativity, how American fashion, music, slang, and art are born in black neighborhoods, only to be stripped of credit and sold back by white institutions. Warner wasn't speculating. He was tracing the receipts. And, as always, he spoke with calm precision, not outrage, because truth didn't need theatrics. But he went even further. He began to question the term black excellence, once believing it was tied to wealth, fame, or academic prestige. That changed, he said, after learning about black soldiers whose sacrifices were left out of Arlington's official records. Black survival in and of itself is black excellence, Warner said. That line hits even harder now, knowing how suddenly his own life was cut short. It's hard not to feel like Warner sensed something. His tone shifted in those final days. His posts were sharper, his podcast more vulnerable, his critiques more daring. He wasn't retreating. He was advancing into truth, even as the risk grew. Comedian Eddie Griffin, Warner's Malcolm and Eddie co-star, had long warned of what he called the pattern, a disturbing cycle in which powerful black men are silenced once their influence threatens the status quo. "Every black entertainer," Eddie once said, "they give us all an actress by name." It wasn't a joke, it was code. Michael Jackson, Michael Jordan, Bill Cosby. Their scandals, whatever the facts, arrived with uncanny timing. When they pushed too far or stood too tall, the backlash hit harder. The legacy crumbled. Warner didn't have a public scandal. He had truth. And in a world built on black performance, but not black power, truth can be the greatest threat of all. Warner's life didn't follow the script of so many child stars. There were no substance-fueled meltdowns, no headlines chasing chaos. He quietly built a life beyond fame, acting, making music, raising a family. He faced the collapse of the Cosby legacy with dignity. He watched friends fall, loved ones pass, and still he kept showing up. But behind his peaceful public image was a man who saw the game for what it was, who had fought battles behind the scenes, fighting for better scripts, deeper stories, honest representation, who knew what it cost to push back. On Malcolm and Eddie, he believed he was building something strong, until the show was canceled just 12 episodes short of syndication. The message was clear: speak up too much, and you'll be cut off just before you win. Now, looking back, Warner's final days feel loaded with meaning. He spoke more truth than ever before, and within 48 hours, he was gone. Of course, accidents happen. The ocean is unforgiving, but the timing, the message, the warnings, the preventable failures, it all lingers. And so does the question: was this really just a tragic accident, or something we were never meant to understand? What we do know is this: Malcolm Jamal Warner was more than Theo. He was a truth-teller, a thinker, a man who turned his fame into a platform and used it to spotlight a system built to exploit, erase, and profit. And now, that voice is gone. But what remains is the echo of his message. Cut short, yes, but not silenced. Because if Warner taught us anything, it's that survival itself is resistance. And in the black tradition, even in death, truth finds a way to rise. Malcolm Jamal Warner, legacy, loyalty, and the quiet strength behind the spotlight. You know, not to feel something? Not to have an emotional response to what this man is going through? That's how many people reacted when Malcolm Jamal Warner was pulled into the most painful controversy of his life. A scandal he didn't cause, but couldn't escape. For Warner, the accusations against Bill Cosby weren't just headlines. They were deeply personal, emotional, complicated. Cosby didn't just hire him, he shaped him. At 13, Warner was handpicked from a nationwide search to play Theo Huxtable. Cosby became his mentor, a father figure on and off screen. Warner would later recall how Cosby never acted superior despite his stardom, and how small choices, like avoiding trendy slang, kept the show timeless. Years later, Warner watched old episodes with his daughter and realized Cosby's advice had paid off. Their bond went far beyond television. That's what made the scandal so devastating. When more than 50 women came forward accusing Cosby of sexual assault, the world wanted Warner's take. But his response wasn't black and white. In a 2015 interview, he said, "He's one of my mentors. Just as it's painful to hear any woman talk about what happened, whether true or not, it's just as painful to watch my friend and mentor go through this." It was a statement filled with conflict, compassion, and restraint. Warner didn't excuse Cosby, but he also refused to publicly condemn him. "I can't defend him," he said, "but I won't throw him under the bus either." He also criticized the media frenzy surrounding the scandal, calling it a circus. Not because he dismissed the accusations, but because he believed the conversation lacked the nuance such a serious situation deserved. What hurt most, Warner said, wasn't just the fall of a man he admired. It was watching The Cosby Show disappear from the airwaves. The show had represented a rare portrayal of a loving, stable black family. Now, Warner feared, That vision would become a fairy tale. And there was a financial cost, too. With syndication canceled, royalty checks stopped. Warner pointed out the double standard. Woody Allen's films still air. Roman Polanski's films still win awards. But The Cosby Show is wiped out. His frustration wasn't selfish. It was systemic. That sense of loss began to shift after a conversation with his former co-star, Kashia Knight Pulliam, who played Rudy. She reminded Warner that the show had inspired an entire generation, especially young black children, to believe they could go to college, dream big, and see themselves on screen. That really shifted my perspective, Warner said. From that point on, he chose to focus on what the show had accomplished, not just what had been lost. It was a testament to his emotional maturity, his ability to wrestle with pain without letting it define him. And that was always Malcolm Jamal Warner's gift. Balance, grace, quiet strength. Unlike many child stars, Warner avoided the usual traps. No public meltdowns, no scandals. That didn't happen by accident. It was discipline. Raised by his mother, Pamela, who also managed his career, Warner was taught early how to protect his peace. Even in the 80s, he was focused on sending a positive message. His 1988 book, Theo and Me. Growing Up OK encouraged young fans to stay drug-free and make smart choices. He wasn't chasing fame. He was building purpose. After The Cosby Show, Warner worked hard to escape the shadow of Theo. He even admitted he hated being called that for a while. Not out of ego, but because he wanted to grow. And grow he did. He directed episodes of Kenan and Kel, became an accomplished spoken-word poet, won a Grammy for Best Traditional R&B Performance, and earned another nomination for his poetry album, Hiding in Plain View. His acting remained fearless, from sitcoms, Malcolm and Eddie, to drama, Suits, The Resident, Major Crimes, The People, vs. O.J. Simpson. What makes Warner's career remarkable is what didn't happen. While others stumbled, he stayed steady. He credits that to discipline and to his mother's unwavering guidance. But perhaps the deepest test of Warner's resilience came with heartbreak. In the late 90s, Warner lost Michelle Thomas, his ex-girlfriend and Cosby Show co-star who played Justine, Theo's on-screen love. Though they had broken up in 1994, they remained incredibly close. When Thomas was diagnosed with a rare form of stomach cancer in 1997, Warner stood by her side until the end. She passed away in 1998, at just 30 years old. He never turned that loss into a publicity moment. He grieved quietly, privately, but those who knew him say it changed him. It made him more introspective, more serious, and more compassionate. Years later, Warner would enter a very different kind of public relationship with actress Regina King. They had known each other since their teenage fame years and lived together between 2011 and 2013. Their breakup was sudden and messy, with reports that Warner asked King and her son to move out unexpectedly. Warner never commented publicly, choosing privacy over spectacle. That's what defined his entire life: intentionality. Even as his projects evolved, from children's books to spoken-word albums and short films tackling mass incarceration and racial injustice, his voice remained rooted in something deeper than celebrity. He spoke of survival, justice, legacy. Not trends, but truths. When Warner died suddenly in 2025, it wasn't just a beloved actor we lost. It was a thinker, a teacher, and a man who had found peace in the storm. He had grown up in front of us, but never let fame raise him. He chose depth over drama, meaning over headlines. His story is not just one of success, but of survival, of facing impossible tensions, between loyalty and truth, between fame and freedom, and walking through them with grace.